Dave, Icy has told me that you're more of an information-based bettor, when I see is more about like the stats and models and stuff. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm really not one that's into trends. I'm more into, I re-educate myself on these teams every day. Things change daily. Going back to like his Boston trend, for example, like Boston's a type of team that when you're playing under, they're going to play a lot different with Tim Thomas in goal, because there's more confidence there is when Rask is in. So when Rask is in, you might see them a little bit tighter. To where Thomas is in, they're going to play a little bit open, where they're not, focused so much on defense.
Great stuff. And what do you think about his Florida Panthers trend?
I think he's going to be betting a lot of overs, because they're not going to be favored too much. I know they're a small favorite tonight at home, but that Florida's the team that plays hard, but they're not even close to having the type of talent to compete night in, night out in the NHL. And
would you follow trends, or would you ever follow trends blindly?
No, absolutely not. I don't follow trends. I'm more of taking a look at the team's schedule. How long they've been rested for, what type of practices they're having, what type of injuries they have. I want to know as much as I can about a team, and that's every day. I'm following up on a team, reading to get a good pulse on where that team's at. There's not too many teams that play consistent hockey through a year. They're going to change. The Ottawa Senators right now are a totally different team than they were in the beginning of the year. And New Jersey Devils, while they have most of the same core, this is a team that was out of it in late December, and now they've taken 48 of their last possible 56 points, and they're back in the playoff talks. So, you got to adjust to how these teams play and what they're going through at the time.
And Icy, what do you think of what Dave has to say there?
I think Dave's right in a lot of ways too, but I also think the program needs to be informative. This is a video that's going to have a shelf life of about 2 weeks, so it's about giving quality, or just, I guess, giving people the notion of things to look for. I agree. In fact, I don't actually play all these plays. That's why I only do one play a day. And we talked about in our last video how revenge is always more useful than a particular trend. Trends are just useful to see what's up. And the reason why we do 2 weeks is it's kind of an arbitrary number, but things change all the time. But at the same time, we don't make these videos every day either. So it needs to be productive and useful for people too, unless we did a video every single day. And I think we've done all right. I mean, we're 11-7. We're about 61%. We're hanging in there. So I think it'll be all right.
Brilliant.
As far as Florida, I agree. Florida's not going to be a championship team, or even a team that might even make it to the playoffs. But Florida, when they are favored, that's something that kind of puts up your antenna stuff, and it kind of tells you that, hey, Florida's favored today, which means they're probably going to play their style of ball game. So certainly, as far as winning championships or even making the playoffs, they're not a quality team. But then again, making money it doesn't matter if you bet on a really bad team or a really good team. A win is a win.
And listen, Icy, overall, how are you doing in the NHL season this year?
I'm up, I think, like 30 or 40 units, something like that. But this month has been really good. We're 11-3 this month so far.
And Dave, what about yourself?
It's lopsided in my favor. I think a $100 player going today is like plus 8,800 on the year. But I do want to comment on what he's saying is true. And I did watch the last video where he talked about motivation as being key. I can't agree with that more. Motivation is a part of every sports. It's either a lack of motivation or motivation. So I definitely agree with what some of the things that he was saying.
Great stuff. So basically, your original ideas come from the same place, but then you draw your conclusions from somewhere else. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he's coming out with the trends and where that comes from. It's just for me, I'm not a trend person.
And could you give picks for like 2 weeks? Is there any way that you could tell like me who to bet on for the next 2 weeks without trends?
For 2 weeks. You know what? I can tell you teams to watch for. A team like, with the playoff races that are going on right now, there's some spots open for the final playoff spots. Montreal's a team that's probably going to make the playoffs because they're so far ahead in the clear. But this is a team that right now is going through some problems with some injuries. They're small. They're quick and small. They're not really built for playoff hockey. A team like Washington, who's just on fire, they lost a tough one last night, but that was also something like their 7th game in 15 days or 8th game in 15 days. So Washington's playing really good hockey. They've changed their style of play back in December to where they're playing more of a New Jersey type of hockey where it's low scoring, where last year it was ridiculous. They would win games 6-5 on a regular basis. The one thing about Washington is they have 3 young goalies. One's hurt right now, but I think Nerveth will be the starter there. And one other team I would keep an eye on is Buffalo. Buffalo's just came off a stretch where they started March by playing 7 straight games on the road. They go 4-3, which is actually good. And now they have had a couple days off, and they turn around. They're going to be playing Atlanta, who they're in competition with for that last playoff spot. And they still get New York, Toronto, New Jersey, and Carolina. 3 of them games they have at home, and they're all teams that are going to be fighting for that last playoff spot. I think Buffalo's a good team coming down the stretch that I would definitely watch for. They have a good coach. They have great goaltending, and that's a team that's going to have some value.
And would you be researching the coaches and the injuries and different player kind of stats and stuff? Because I know you only have 2 hours a day. Or is it mostly just the numbers that you're getting out of it? Or is there a little bit of both?
No, actually, one of my good friends is Robert Faringo, and Busk and Robert work together for the hockey picks. And I told Bob, I was like, Busk could be a really good addition simply because we approach it in 2 different ways. And we want this video to be as informative as possible for people. And, handicap is not a one-way street. It's sometimes people take different paths to get to the same location. So, the reason why I like Busk a lot is he approaches things, in contrast to the way I approach things sometimes too. But I think one common trend that we both have is motivation. And I think it all comes down to who's going to show up that day and why they're going to show up. So I'm really glad Busk is on because it really shows people the divergence of how different paths can kind of get you to the same spot as well. As far as, Judy, when I only do 1 play a day because I just feel that, especially for bettors for the course of the year, it's so easy to bust your bankroll sometimes. So for me, it's always go with your best play. And I've always believed the more times you butt your head against Vegas, the more likely you are to lose possibly. So, I'm looking for the play with the most motivation for that day. Try to keep it simple. If I can go 5-2 or 4-3 on the week and over the long haul of 52 weeks, it'll work out. So basically, if there's 6 or 7 ball games, I'm going with the game with the biggest motivation. And that motivation could be revenge. It could be a team that scored 0 goals in their game before to come out and try to win. Or it could be a team that gave up 6 goals their game before, which is out of characteristics. That's going to try to play more defensive oriented and try to play under, and so on.
So quality over quantity, and substance over style, and revenge over trends. I see you're the man for these kind of things. It's hilarious. I love it. And Dave, would you agree? Would you be taking quality over quantity as well, or would you play more than 1 game a day?
I'll play wherever I think there's value. I'm going to play. I mean, tonight there's a big board. I play 2 games. If I thought that there was more there for me value-wise, I would be on it. But these lines are going to get tight down the end, especially with totals. But the best advice I could give you is just look for motivational spots. A team like Edmonton has nothing to play for, but at some point down the stretch, they're going to play in a game where they're going to be competitive. I wouldn't buy so much into this team has to win because that never works in sports. But there will be motivation spots where you can pick it apart, and if you had the feel and know what you're looking for.
Brilliant, guys. I feel like I learned a lot.
It's a team effort.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. Thanks so much for your input and time, Dave. And of course, to you, IC. You can follow IC's trends in the SBR forum in the NHL thread, where we list all the plays and update the results. You can find IC and Dave on DocSports.com, or on YouTube, you can find IC at iCatDocSports. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to comment, and we'll try to include them in the next edition. Happy St. Patrick's Day!